Hello America, how are we doing today? It's afternoon out here in the BLM in Quartzsite, Arizona, and one of the guys has been sitting around the campfire for the last week or so is Jerry, and he has some information for you, I think, that people may or may not be interested in. But anyway, you are American. But you don't live in America.
I'm an American.
You're an American.
I used to live in America.
Hello, America. So,
but we've lived in Mexico as our principal residence for 20 years. It'll be 20 years this December in 2001.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, okay. Now, what part of Mexico? Mexico City or?
Well, about 300 kilometers from Mexico City, Guadalajara.
Okay.
Guadalajara is the second largest city in Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
It's up in the middle of the country in the high plateaus.
Okay, all right.
So you have I think it's the Sierra Madres along the west coast of Mexico.
All right.
And the Sierra Orientes, I might not be saying that right,
Okay.
along the southern side. And in the middle of Mexico, it's all very high. Like
Okay.
Mexico City is 7,000 feet. We're at
Right.
5,200 feet
Right.
where I live.
Mexico City's higher than Denver, isn't it?
By about 2,000 feet, yeah.
Denver's like 5,500 or something, a mile high city.
52 would be a mile, 5280 if I remember my high school.
Okay, there you go, 5280, okay. So, but Denver's roughly a mile, so Mexico City is a mile and a quarter, or almost a mile and a half.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but Guadalajara is kind of the same way, high elevation?
It is. And so one of the reasons a lot of expats live there is because of the weather.
Okay.
And that sounds very simple, but the fact is that it's an alpine altitude like Denver
Okay.
and a tropical latitude.
Mm-hmm.
Because once you get down into Mexico below Mazatlan and down towards Puerto Vallarta, it starts to get very tropical. Like it turns from this kind of stuff in northern Mexico to tropical
Like Panama.
jungle. Yeah.
Okay.
You know, we're talking,
Costa Rica.
we're talking palm trees, bananas, and
Okay.
coconuts.
Well,
Not up in the high plateau, though. That's
Okay.
more like this again.
Okay.
It's not as arid as the BLM out here by
Right.
Quartzsite, but
Right. Now, years ago, I was probably 15 years ago, it was on the news there in Dallas, and it was a slow news day, so they had one of these, person of interest stories or whatever, or just it was a story they had sitting in the wings waiting for a slow news day. And it was like Sunday's news, whatever. And they had this story about these expats, and I'd never heard the word expats before. And I thought, oh, these people that have turned their nose on America and defected, or not defected is the wrong word, but you know what I'm saying, they're not citizens anymore. You're still a citizen here.
oh, absolutely.
Okay.
And I'm a legal resident of Mexico, but I'm a U.S. citizen.
Okay.
And I don't have dual citizenship, so I can't vote in Mexico.
Okay.
The word expat has a sometimes negative connotation because it's short for expatriated or
Expatriate.
Yeah.
Patriotic. You're not patriotic anymore. And that's what I thought.
That's not how we as expats think of ourselves.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I'm still very much, red, white, and blue.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we don't feel good about people thinking that the word expat means expatriated.
Okay, so it's not, when I hear the expat in America, I'm thinking Soviet defector in Russia.
Exactly.
And it's not anything to do with that.
Nothing like
Okay,
that.
all right. So past that, then, so these expats are moving to America, or from America down there, and the story was basically about how cheap you can live down there. At that time, it was like 6 to 1. For every $1 here, you could buy $6 worth of stuff in Mexico, or something along those lines. This is 15 years ago.
It's the most common question that we get.
How cheap can you live?
Is, can you live cheap in Mexico? And the answer is yes, you absolutely can live cheap in Mexico. Millions, like about 130 million people, Mexicans, do. But that's not the point.
Okay.
The point isn't to go down there and live like a dirt poor person.
Like a peasant. Yes.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
not the point.
Right.
The point is that you get more for your dollar. So, I'm not living on my Social Security, but I could live on my Social Security down there. My Social Security wouldn't buy this and that Jeep and whatever.
Right.
But I could live on my Social Security down there, and what I would get would be a much higher standard of living than what I would get in the United States.
You spend $200,000 on a house here in America. You can spend $200,000 on a house in Mexico, but it's almost like mansion. Or very, very nice house.
Yes and no.
Okay.
Yes, if you're not in an area where there's a lot of expats. We drive up the economy in the place that I live, which is, by the way, on Lake Chapala.
Okay, I've heard. Yeah, that's the exact town that they were talking about in that interview.
And it's the largest lake in Mexico, and along the north shore, in a distance of about 20 kilometers, are lots of little towns. The town I live in is Ajijic.
Ajijic?
Yeah, pronounced or mispronounced most often by Ajijic.
Okay. Yeah.
And
I've yet to figure out 2 L's equal Y. Like Amarillo. You know,
well, and in this case, a J equals an H. So.
Yeah, but it's their language. So
and the old Indian spelling of it is A-X-I-X-I.
Okay.
Anyway.
But it's right on a lake then, or you got lakefront property?
Yes, Lake Chapala is the largest lake in Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
It's 80 kilometers long, and its widest point 20 kilometers.
And it's high elevation.
5,200 feet.
So it's equivalent here would be like Lake Tahoe? But Lake Tahoe is much more snowy and everything, but
I'm not terribly familiar with Lake Tahoe, but
it's a natural lake. It's not a man-made reservoir, right?
It's a natural lake.
Natural lake.
Yes.
Okay. Is it a real pretty scenic lake, or is it more of a kind of like the Salton Sea over here in California?
Well, it's definitely not like the Salton Sea.
Okay.
There's controversy about whether it's polluted or not, and all of those negative connotations that people always get about Mexico in the news apply to the quality of the water in the lake, and can you swim in there, and is the lake killing children because of the mercury, and all of that stuff goes on all the time,
right?
No matter where you live in the world. Okay. People swim in it every day. They water ski, they sail, they whatever.
I know if you
fish.
If you go to Google and type in Lake Chapala and on images, you'll see all these real brightly painted fishing boats.
Yeah.
You know, white with real like neon green and neon orange. You know, beautiful bright colors.
I know
Mexican colors.
I know exactly what you're talking about, and it's at Lake Chapala at the pier, and they're not fishing boats.
Oh, they're not?
They're tourist boats because there's an island out there about, it must be like a mile out into the lake, and it's called Scorpion Island, probably for good reason. We have a lot of those.
Yeah.
There's a couple of fish restaurants out there, and there's an Indian indigenous people's shrine out there. Anyway, you can take one of these tourist boats, and that's what they are. They're tourist boats.
I thought it was fishing. It looks like very good.
And Chapala is the weekend destination for Guadalajara.
Okay.
And Guadalajara is 5 million people. So we're not talking about all the expats go on the pretty boats. It's all of the Guadalajarans who come down for the weekend. So this is a Mexican tourist area. Not an international tourist
Just happens
area.
a bunch of Americans and Canadians.
Yeah.
They
Well,
live there.
and a lot of Europeans too.
Okay.
We were talking about, can you live inexpensively in Mexico? I don't like to use the word cheap. Bob Wells got that covered.
You know, live cheap, live in a van and poop in a bucket.
No, but the housing prices right where we are, they're not low.
Okay.
Because the expats who can afford it, and as I started to say, a lot of Europeans and people who have the means to live wherever they want in the world live there. So the prices for real estate is exaggerated compared to the standard in Mexico. And it's the same whether if you're at the beach in Puerto Vallarta or Acapulco or Mazatlan, a beachfront property is going to be a premium.
Yeah. Just like in San Diego or
and where we live,
Malibu.
you know, in real estate, it's location, location, location. Well, location, location, location. Where on the North Shore, Lake Chapala, is Ajijic.
Okay.
That's where I live.
Okay. All right. Switch gears here. How safe is it? You got all the. I'm one of those that's terrified to go to Mexico. You couldn't drag me down there.
Yeah.
And because I see all the stuff on the news about beheadings by cartel, and down there Juarez across from El Paso. I mean, I used to go through El Paso all the time, so I heard all the news, the local news there. And another gang shooting down in or cartel shooting and killed 40 people, and I know that's border stuff. You're going to say border stuff, but what about down deeper in Mexico? I mean, is it an issue?
I'm not going to say border stuff.
Oh, okay.
Border stuff is corruption and the police, asking you for more data and stopping you and telling you that you had a traffic infraction and you got to owe them some money. That's border stuff. Farther down in Mexico, and including the border, but farther down in Mexico, there are problems with the cartel. And this is one of the, if how inexpensively can you live in Mexico is question number one, is it safe is question number two.
That's why I asked it.
I feel safe down there. If you live out of the country for a while and watch international news that's not CNN or based in the United States, you will be scared to death to come to the United States. Really? Shootings in Chicago.
You wouldn't park this in downtown Detroit and camp.
Exactly.
Or downtown Chicago.
I've always said, with reason and experience, that I feel safer in Mexico than here. Now, that's not the case sitting out here where you and I are in the BLM. I feel pretty safe.
Right.
But just in regard to being in a city, the cartels in Mexico, it's a transportation business. They're transporting drugs all the way through the country to the market.
They don't really make it there. It's all made in like Colombia and places like that.
The market's here.
The market's here, but the manufacturing's down in South America.
Yeah.
Mexico's just the highway up.
Mexico's and all of the violence, that's Chad and his razor.
There you go. Yeah.
All of the violence is cartel to cartel. It's not cartel to the general public.
Okay.
And the cartels don't like publicity.
Right.
It's not good for business to have publicity.
It's just like the old mob. Hey, don't make a big scene about it because it brings heat on us.
Exactamente.
Yeah.
And
Exactamente.
excuse me. Exactly.
So you speak pretty good Spanish too, right?
Well, after
20
nearly
years.
20 years in the country, it's embarrassingly little.
Oh, really? Okay.
Well,
you can get by.
When I first went down there, I said, I don't want to take Spanish lessons from some person who learned Castilian Spanish from Spain in high school and they're teaching it to me.
Yeah.
I want to be able to hear the music of the language.
Okay, there you
go. After 20 years, that's a terrible excuse. But I can make it through a hardware store. I'm real good at the hardware store.
Okay.
I
need a screwdriver, yeah.
Disarm a door.
Okay.
For my Mexican friends.
Yeah, I kind of turned you here. We were still talking about the cartel and everything. Okay.
Yeah, the cartels, as long as you're not buying drugs, doing drugs, or selling drugs, you shouldn't worry about the cartel.
Okay.
Now, they do have some side businesses. One of them is kidnapping and extortion.
Okay.
And there are wealthy Americans who worry about that, okay? And by wealthy, I don't mean rich. I mean middle-class Americans who look rich.
Yeah, okay.
But Mexico has a lot of poor people, very few people in the middle class, and a lot of really rich people. And when I say rich, I'm talking about rich.
Right.
Okay? Those are the people who worry about kidnappings and have bodyguards and whatever. It's not well-to-do but not rich expats.
Okay, all right. So when you go down there, you drive this, of course. Or do you leave this here in the States and just fly down for your house, or do you take your car? Or?
Years ago, when we first were going down there in 2001, 2, and 3, we had an old 88 Southwind motorhome, 33 foot, and we drove it back and forth.
Okay.
And we were from Oregon at that time.
Okay.
Several years ago, like 4 or 5 years ago, 6 years ago actually, we changed our immigration status in Mexico from temporary to permanent. And once you're a permanent resident legally, you can't have a foreign plated car in the country. So all of this stuff, the Jeep, the motorcycles,
you leave it.
the RV, that stays here.
Okay.
And
so you just fly down, have a car down there to drive?
Yeah,
down?
we've got a van and an ATV and a
very good. Okay.
Beamer Roadster down there.
No regrets apparently. You seem pretty happy about it.
I don't have any regrets about having a place to live in Mexico.
Okay.
And I love people, talking about all of the crap that's going on in America politically or whatever. Right. And I just, for me, I'm kind of apolitical, number one. But number two is my my smart ass answer is, well, I figured out the solution to that 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I moved to Mexico.
Get out. Okay.
Yeah.
One of the other things I wanted to touch on real quick is now, and this is another misconception you cleared me up on at the fire the other night. Your house, you can't. You're not a Mexican citizen, so you can't buy property. So you got a house on somebody else's property, or
Yeah.
how does that all work?
It's a very common belief that you have to be a Mexican to buy property in Mexico.
Mm-hmm. That's what I heard. Yeah,
Everybody thinks that. Well, not everybody, but a lot of people do.
common. Yeah.
Let me start at the beginning of that story.
Mm-hmm.
In 1964, Richard Burton and John Huston went down to Puerto Vallarta to make the movie Night of the Iguanas.
Okay.
And then Elizabeth Taylor followed him down there because she was chasing Richard Burton.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people know that story.
Yep.
But the rest of the story is that they loved it down there so much that they built a bridge between her house and his house because they weren't together yet.
Okay.
And it's a bridge that goes across a little canyon. It's still there. You can go take a tour of it.
All right.
But what started to happen was that all of the Hollywood people started going down there and buying up property on the beach. So the Mexican federal government passed a law that said, unless you're a Mexican citizen, you cannot own property 50 kilometers in from the ocean or 100 kilometers from an international border, which would be Belize, Guatemala, and the U.S.
Okay. 50 kilometers is about 30 miles, roughly?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
And then that was in like the 1960s.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it was the late 70s or the middle 80s, but they tweaked the law a little bit in order to allow foreigners to buy property, but it has to be held in what's called, I might not have my Spanish word right, but it's Fidel Cosmo.
Okay.
If you're a Spanish speaker.
Sorry.
What
does it mean?
It sort of means like trust.
Okay.
So a bank has to hold it in a Fidel Cosmo.
Okay.
Yeah, anyway,
Okay.
a bank has to hold it in trust for you. A Mexican bank.
Okay.
And it costs $3,000 or $4,000 to set up this trust situation with the bank, a Mexican bank. And then it costs about $1,000 a year as a fee to the bank to maintain this for you. Have you bought a house in the United States with a mortgage?
Okay. Yeah. Well, no, I haven't. I bought property with. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, but anyway, you probably have a mortgage and you had a trust deed, no doubt.
Okay.
Which meant that the bank here in the United States held the deed in trust
Until you paid it off.
until you paid it off,
Okay.
until a condition happened.
Okay.
Okay, so these things are held in trust by the bank, and as long as you pay the yearly fees, no problem. And you have all the same rights of ownership, just like you, as the owner of a house in the United States, have ownership rights, even though you're not really the owner because the bank's holding the title in trust.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't own your car until you pay it off. The bank actually owns it. Yeah. So.
Anyway, it's a 50 or 99 year, people refer to it as a lease, but it's more like a trust deed. It's a 50 or 90 year contract.
Yes. Okay.
And it's renewable.
Oh, it is. Okay. I thought once you got it,
And
then
it,
they get the
and it
house you
passes
built.
to your heirs.
Okay. See, that's what I'd heard. You can lease it. You
Okay.
can lease the land. You rent the land for 100 years. You build a house on it. You're going to die. You know, if you're 70 years old and you built this house, you're going to die. And you know, you're not going to live to 100 years down there doing it. But you'd pass it on to your kids. But once that 100 years is over, the people that actually physically own the land, guess what? They got a free house.
No, it's renewable. You own the
Okay.
land.
I didn't know that part.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the federal government owns the land. That's on my property. I have about a half acre lakefront property, and gardens, big house, swimming pool, whatever. I don't own my trees. The federal government of Mexico retains ownership of all the trees. So if
You
I
ain't getting our trees.
So and you'll see places where the wall is built like this and then it's built around the tree like that. If you're around Mexico, you'll see that.
What's the purpose of this?
Because it's easier to build the wall around than it is to get a permit from the federal government.
But why would they want the tree? Why?
No, because it's a conservation thing.
Oh, so you can't cut it down.
Yeah.
You got a big dirty palm tree that's blocking my view, cut it down, and they don't want that palm tree cut down.
Exactly. So to trim trees, you're supposed to get a permit.
Okay.
Now, you know, but it's still Mexico, and a lot of things that are laws, not everybody pays attention to.
Okay.
Let me just put it that way.
Yeah, like the drug cartel. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But you've corrected me on a lot of misconceptions that I had.
But about owning property then, outside of, they call it the restricted zone, 50 kilometers from the ocean, 100 kilometers from the border. You buy property, you own it by direct deed, and anybody can buy it.
Just like here in America.
Yeah, it's Article 27 of the Mexican Constitution. Says that anybody can be treated in terms of a land sale as a Mexican citizen as long as you pay a fee. It's called an Article 27 fee. So when we bought property, in order to put our names on a Mexican document, we had to pay, at the time, and this is many, many years ago, I don't know what it is today, about the equivalent of $500 to be treated as a Mexican citizen with regard to putting our names on a direct deed.
Okay, so there is paperwork and ways to do this. Okay, I just, I heard that story, or watched that news report, and I'm like, never really thought about going to a different country. I'm thinking, go find some state to live, like, I don't know, Mississippi's pretty low cost to, so go move to Mississippi or move to Nevada or Alaska. They actually pay you to live in Alaska, I think, or they used to anyway.
But part of the oil,
so I got to thinking, where's a good, inexpensive place so my dollar would last longer here in America? And then I saw that show, and I'm thinking, And then there's Mexico, and what are some of the other, Belize, some of the other countries that are really good. Taiwan, we got a friend of mine that goes to Taiwan every year.
Panama.
Thailand.
Panama, Ecuador. Yeah, there are a lot of people live in Cuenca, Ecuador.
Okay. What about like Costa Rica? Is that good, or?
Costa Rica is probably expensive.
Okay. It's a pretty good country, though.
Yeah.
So that's why it's expensive. Okay. But yeah, people run around the country. They go to the Philippines and places like that, and travel around the world, and it's a lot cheaper to live there. And I got a friend of mine, Rick. He goes to Thailand every year, and I said, man, isn't that a high dollar? The plane ticket. I mean, you got to store your RV and everything. He's the one with the Bluebird school bus, if you remember that video. Anyway, he takes off and flies down there, and I says, man, that's got to be an expensive airplane ticket. And he goes, yeah, but the money you saved for the 6 months you're down there makes it more than worth it.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, oh, okay. And he says, it's a totally different culture, and I love it. And then he comes back up here and I guess he can only stay there for 6 months or something, or he can't leave. I don't know what it is, but there's something about 6 months.
Well, a lot of countries have
Canadians are like that.
You have to have a visa to, well, Canadian's different. There's a different reason, but like if you go to Mexico as a tourist, you can get a maximum of 180 days in the country without having to leave.
Okay.
And Canadians lose their health insurance if they're out of the country for more than 6 months.
That's what it is.
That's a different deal.
Okay. But here in America, we can leave and don't have to come back to America, but the country you're going to, they won't let you stay. Like, I'd love to go to New Zealand.
Yeah.
You can go down there as a tourist, but to go down and become a citizen, forget it. Yeah, it's almost impossible, they say. So
they say Uruguay is a really easy country to immigrate to if you want to become a citizen, like if you need to get a different passport.
Yeah. Where's Uruguay at?
It's South America.
Okay, all right. Didn't know that one. I heard it, but I couldn't think where it was at.
Yeah, there's.
Okay.
There are people who need to get a different passport.
Okay. The cartel. Just teasing. I keep joking around, but anyway. So yeah, all the questions I kind of had about that, you've kind of steered me back onto the right, information, I guess, because I was, you go down there, you can't buy land. You go down there, the cartel's going to kill you. You go down there, you can live cheap. Now, living cheap versus living inexpensively is different, in your opinion, right? I mean, you go down there and live like a peasant, like a lot of the peasants that leave Mexico trying to come up here. You can live really cheap, but then you're living on rice and beans in a hut, right?
A lot of people out here are living cheap.
Yeah.
And one of the things you do to live cheap is you don't turn your hot water heater on and use your propane unless you're going to have a shower.
Right.
That's pretty common.
You can do that in a fancy house.
You say that out here in BLM, and everybody knows exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. You go to the suburb in Phoenix, and they're like, why would I return the water heater?
My gardener does that.
Oh, there you go. So what do you have, a gardener and a maid and all this kind of stuff, a cook? Or do you do all that yourself?
I do.
Okay.
I don't have a cook, but
Okay. All right.
we have a gardener comes 3 days a week, and maid comes 2 days a week.
There you go. There you go. And that is very inexpensive compared to a maid or a gardener here in America, right?
About $5 an hour.
Okay. Well, there you go. All right. So, and to them, that's decent money, right?
That's very good.
That's very
the
good
minimum wage, federal minimum wage in Mexico City, is about $12 a day.
Wow.
Yeah.
That worked good back in 1950 here, but not anymore.
Not anymore.
Yeah. Okay.
Another thing you haven't asked me about that a lot of people do is healthcare.
Oh, okay.
We're 35 miles out of a city of 5 million that has world-class healthcare and private care. There's also government programs. We have a government health insurance in Mexico, socialized medicine. A hospital I go to is 5 years old.
Okay.
The doctors are excellent.
So it's not like a third world hut with cots on the floor.
No.
It's a nice hospital.
It is healthcare for the masses, so there might be long waiting lines, and that's pretty typical of socialized medicine anywhere in the world.
Right.
You know, you can hear the stories about that in Canada, but
Canada and England and all that, yeah.
meds are included, and my premium. Are you sitting down? Mine's a little more expensive because I am 75 years old.
Okay.
I have to pay $400 a year.
For all your medical, period? Or
Yeah.
just the meds?
And there's no cash register in the system.
Okay.
If you're in the system, you're in the system.
Really?
There's
Okay.
no billing, there's no co-pays, there's no nothing, and it includes meds.
Okay.
Now, that's why we moved down there when we were 55 years old.
Yeah. You got like a opening beside you? Your neighbor house is empty?
Matter of fact,
Somebody
I
else
do. It's
come in?
about 160,000, and it's a 2-bedroom condo.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'm gonna have to kind of rethink this because my perception of Mexico is you go down there, you get killed, or they whatever. You know.
You know what you do, Stan,
Yeah.
is you fly down to Guadalajara. That's from Dallas. That's a $400 round trip ticket,
Okay.
and it's 25 minutes from the international airport. You get a B&B, and we're not saying this for YouTube, but if you happen to know me,
Okay.
I have a guest room if the rest of you don't.
Yeah. Ching, 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 ching. I got a lot of comments on this. Hey, set me up with him. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway.
And you check it out, and Spanish is not a problem. I mean, English is not a problem.
Okay. I mean, the Mexicans that live in these touristy areas like Cancun, places like that, it behooves them to know English or even other languages, because if a lot of French people come to that particular area, they want to know French so they can serve and get better money and tips and everything.
My
Right?
maid and gardener refused to speak English.
Really?
But they understand it.
Okay.
So you gotta be careful what you're saying.
Okay. Let's see what else there was. You have a YouTube channel too, right? Or you have like a Facebook or
I have
different things that you can follow?
I have a YouTube channel that is pretty popular with people who are of retiring age or getting close to it and would like to think about
What we're
moving
talking
to Mexico.
about right here.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's called JC Travel Stories,
Okay.
and it's been up for, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 years. It's got over 300 videos, and when I'm in the States, it's about RVing and the stuff we're doing out here. But when I'm at home in Mexico, it's about retiring and living in Mexico.
Okay. Very good.
Yeah.
So they can kind of follow you there and learn different things that we've talked about here, and all right. Very good. All right. Well, this is a pretty long, 30-minute long video, so
Perfect.
we better go. I try to keep them to 10, but if it's a good, interesting subject, let the camera run. So yeah, I'm glad you kind of, we talked about it around the fire the other night, and I'm going to move to Mexico and get down there and get killed. And he set me straight. All right, go down there. Yeah, you can live on peanuts down there. It doesn't cost you. No, you can live like a a peasant down there and save a ton of money, but you can live very well in a very nice climate and in a nice house. And like, I didn't even think about the medical stuff that you brought up. I didn't even think, that didn't cross my mind. I guess I think of Mexico and I'm thinking of, you know, a MASH unit or something. I'm just, you know, it's a hut with a bunch of cots, and you know, you're sick, you die, you know.
My standard of living in Mexico is much higher than what I would have in the United States.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about my finances, but you know, it's not too bad. I'm not camping in a 40-foot diesel pusher.
Yeah.
But still, for the amount of money I spend as my monthly expenses, I live much better in Mexico than I would here for the same amount of money.
That's what I always understood.
And that's the point. Yeah.
Okay.
It's not about living cheap, it's about living better.
There you go. Good said. Good way to phrase that. So, all right, with that, we'll let it go, and hope you enjoyed this, and we'll see y'all in Mexico, I guess. Ciao.